Bonjour. Bonjour Malik.
Bonjour, Abdou. Comment vas-tu?
Ça va bien et toi?
Ça va très bien.
C'est à 12h30 maintenant, ou bien?
Non, c'est dans 15 minutes, 11h30.
Ok, c'est bon.
Hmm.
Maintenant, j'ai déjà échangé avec Madame Gay. Elle sera de la partie aussi.
Oui, bon, attends, parce que là, les autres vont nous entendre. Attends, je te prends en ligne là-bas, offline.
Ok, vous m'excusez. Oui, allô. Il faut qu'il y
Hello, Malik. Hi, Malik.
I can hear you there, Victor.
Hi, Harry. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I'm looking for Malik so that we can make some announcements to the French speakers.
Yes, I'm trying to join him.
Oh, Safia too?
Yes, hi Victor. Hi all. Hi everyone.
Hi. We'll be starting in about 8 minutes.
Okay.
And I have a quick announcement about how the French speakers can get to download the platform that will allow them to hear the translation to French. So I needed someone who can be able to say that to those who are already on the platform and those who are currently joining.
You have Abdul Job, who is working in the rural agency Azer. Malik Wov joined a minute ago. Maybe he's in communication with Madam Gay here. Just give me just 1 minute, please. I will try to reach out to him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon for those who are in the East. For those who are in the Western parts, I suspect it's just about getting to afternoon as well. And for everyone else from all over the world, welcome to our workshop today. We will officially be starting off the workshop at 2:30 East Africa time, which is 12:30 West Africa time. So we have about just 5 minutes before we kick off. I just wanted to take this time to quickly run through a few things before we get to the official introduction of today's workshop and a few quick remarks from our country, from our team leader, and also the introductions that will be done by Malik Sek, who is our country manager for Senegal. So for those who are already on the call, just a few quick notes. I will mention this a few later. Make sure you have your microphone on mute. For all participants, we kindly request you to turn off your video to avoid any distractions. The speakers who will be speaking today will be allowed to keep their video on. All your questions should be directed to the speakers through the chat function. That can be found if you are on your computer, just with the tools down there where you have your microphone, the video. There's a round box there that signals your ability to be able to chat. So you just click on it and type your question, send it through, and we'll be able to share that with the speakers and everybody that it is directed to. There are 3 breakout sessions in today's workshop. They will be listed out for all of you so that you can pick which one to attend. You are welcome to attend any of the 3 of the sessions after we finish with the opening session. Should you need any help, send a message to the chat section, and myself and part of the team will be there to be able to assist. Just a quick reminder that today's workshop will be translated to French and back to English for all of our participants so that we can effectively communicate with both sides. To make that happen, we have our friends from Interprify who are helping us with that today. And what you can see on your screen is a guidance on how you can download the Interprify app to be able to allow you to listen in to the translation on your phone. The QR code up there, if you have a smartphone, you can just scan it. It will take you either to Google Store or App Store, and you can download the app. Once you download the app, you have to access this meeting through a token, which is listed down there as A-Staff SAS. So that allows you to get onto the platform. Once you get onto the platform, this is if you're using your phone, then you'll be required to choose the language channel in which you want to listen to your translation. If you are intending to listen to your translation in French, you pick French and you connect. If you are intending to listen to your translation in English, then you do the same. You connect to the English channel, and then you just click connect and monitor and try and ensure that you can hear the translator as well. We advise that if possible, get yourself a set of headphones or earphones, because then they make it a bit easier for you to be able to hear the translator. Again, I will make this announcement a bit later on, but I just thought that for those who are already here, it would be important for you to get a head start and be able to get some of this information early so that you set yourself up before we start. Malik, are you on the call?
Yes, Victor, I'm on the call. Hi, everyone. Hi, how are you?
Okay, Malik, we'll need you to help me with just explaining this and the part where our participants can download the app and be able to listen to the translation, so that our French speakers can be able to understand that. Okay, before they get access to the translators.
Can you show that in the screen?
Yes, it's showing on the screen right now. You can start with the guidance. Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to quickly just say something about these 5 points, and then we can proceed to the next one.
Okay. All right, thanks Victor. Donc bonjour à tous, bonjour. Nous remercions déjà de votre disponibilité, d'avoir bien voulu participer à cet atelier, ce webinaire organisé par le programme A-Staff, donc le premier pour cette année 2021. Donc il y a une série de webinaires qui seront présentés, organisés donc dans les différents pays ou dans les différentes régions en fait où A-Staff intervient. Et le premier de ce genre sera pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Ils seront suivis les autres dans les pays, dans l'Afrique australe et en Afrique centrale. En termes de comme l'a suggéré Victor, donc pour la bonne marche de cet atelier, donc nous recommandons de fermer vos micros, donc pour permettre aussi à nos orateurs de s'exprimer de la façon la plus aisée, de ne pas gêner personne, d'éteindre la partie vidéo, hein, pour éviter un peu de distraire un peu. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez, là, ce qu'on appelle là où, en haut de l'écran, il y a la main, il y a entre la main il y a la partie messagerie. Vous pouvez écrire là-bas vos messages. Si vous avez des questions à poser, vous pouvez les écrire là-bas pour permettre aux organisateurs de prendre vos questions en charge et de les relayer pour ceux-là à qui vous posez vos questions. Ensuite, il y aura, après ce panel en plénière, donc il y a 3 sessions qui sont prévues. Une session pour le Sénégal, une autre session pour le Nigeria et une dernière session pour Sierra Leone. Pour le Sénégal, donc chacune de ces sessions, vous avez un lien qui vous renvoie à chacune de ces sessions-là. De toute façon, après, à chaque fois qu'on doit passer d'une session à une autre, Victor vous indiquera le lien à utiliser. Déjà, vous l'avez dans votre boîte de mail normalement. Donc, c'est un peu cela. OK. Could you go to the next slide, Victor? OK. Donc, OK, donc ça, c'est pour vous permettre d'utiliser votre téléphone si vous utilisez votre téléphone pour vous connecter. Could you zoom it a little bit later? OK, thanks. Voilà, OK, it's OK. Donc, vous voyez, donc on vous demande d'apporter votre smartphone parce que souvent, il peut arriver qu'on utilise certaines applications comme Miro ou autres applications qui nous permettent d'avoir une session beaucoup plus interactive. Et ce serait bien donc déjà souvent de mettre votre écouteur pour, si vous utilisez votre téléphone, de sélectionner la langue, ainsi de suite, pour utiliser cette interface-là. En tout cas, après, on va y revenir. OK, could you go to the next slide? Or is it...
That's it.
That was it? Okay, that was it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Malik. So I don't know if I should just leave this here for a few minutes, just as they get together.
I think you can zoom it and then you have to let them just read it. Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, as that is being set up, we will have our team leader for the A-Staff program, Pauline Gedogu, give a few quick remarks as an opening to today's workshop, and she will then be followed by Malik, who will give a quick brief about the A-Staff program, and then open it up for us to now get into the day's activities. Thank you, everyone. I'll leave this here for about 1.5 minutes. But in the meantime, Pauline, if you're there, you can just get ready and get on to the floor.
Thank you very much, Victor. Good morning, good afternoon, bonjour. Thank you for joining our call this afternoon. We're really excited to present and to just have a discussion around what are the opportunities that exist for off-grid solar within Western Africa region. To facilitate this, we have taken cognizance that when you look at West Africa, we have both Francophone and Anglophone countries, and therefore we have provided, as you can see on the screen, an app that you can use to have this session the sessions that are coming up ahead translated. So we look forward to a time of interaction, a time of learning, and I know that some of the information that will be coming to you will be new information that has been gleaned from our market updates that have covered the West Africa region that we cover, as well as particular investment maps that have been drawn out in some of the countries that are represented in West Africa. But overall, I think there is a huge potential for off-grid to go further than it has done within the Western Africa region bloc, and to sort of catch up with the rest of the other parts of the continent from the opportunities that exist. So we welcome you to this workshop. It's an interactive workshop. We have quite a bit of information that's been packed in, and I trust that it will be useful to you. So I want to hand over to my colleague Malik, who is going to tell you about the program in French. So the user guide that you can see also applies to the Anglophones. So we want to encourage you to also download the app and listen in, because the presentation that we'll be making about A-Stuff will be done in French. And therefore, the Anglophone speakers should also download the app so they can hear a little bit about A-Stuff. So thank you, and over to you, Malik.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pauline, for this presentation and putting us into the picture of this webinar. And I'm glad to present the program A-Stuff in French for our francophone audience. Donc, je remercie déjà tout le monde d'avoir voulu, de votre disponibilité, d'avoir bien voulu participer à ce webinaire. Donc, le programme A-Stuff est un programme qui est en trois composantes majeures. Donc c'est la Technical Assistance Facility qu'on est en train de mettre, qui est chargé justement de mettre en œuvre le Compact Energy Africa, qui est une convention qui lie les gouvernements britanniques et sénégalais. Et évidemment, dans les autres pays où A-Stuff intervient aussi, c'est pareil. Donc, laquelle convention, en fait, vise à adresser les différentes barrières identifiées dans le haut réseau au Sénégal. Et effectivement, le programme, en même temps, vise à justement s'associer avec des partenaires comme AFC pour justement adresser la question liée à la norme qualité, l'assurance qualité des produits, mais aussi à un véhicule financier avec qui est notre partenaire, qui est ASC React. Next. Donc, le programme, comme je l'ai dit, est déroulé sur 4 ans et est présent dans 14 pays en Afrique subsaharienne. Donc, il y a 3 pays prioritaires en réalité en Afrique de l'Ouest: le Sénégal, la Sierra Leone, et le Nigeria et le Ghana. Mais le Ghana est un pays qui n'est pas encore, parce qu'on a une approche qu'on appelle les pays prioritaires, où on a beaucoup plus de visibilité pour mener nos interventions de la façon la plus adéquate. Mais aussi, on a ce qu'on appelle les demand-led countries, où on a besoin d'avoir beaucoup plus de visibilité, où les discussions sont en cours avec le gouvernement pour permettre le programme d'apporter son appui de la façon la plus adéquate, la plus appropriée. Donc, comme je l'ai dit, le programme, il est financé par l'ex-DFID, qui est devenu maintenant FCDO, et le programme vise à catalyser donc une approche de marché basée sur une fourniture de qualité de produits par le secteur privé dans le domaine des énergies renouvelables de façon générale, mais mettant le focus sur ce qu'on appelle les systèmes individuels solaires, et ciblant surtout ce qu'on appelle les couches vulnérables, les communautés vulnérables, les groupes à faible revenu. Okay. Next slide. Le programme e-staff repose sur 3 piliers en réalité. Le premier pilier, c'est comment asseoir un cadre favorable qui permette justement de catalyser ce marché-là. Parce que sans ce cadre favorable-là, effectivement, qui freine en fait l'essor de ce marché-là, et à travers les interventions que le programme mène, vise donc au plan politique, donc sur les plans et les stratégies menées par les gouvernements, comment les accompagner à rendre ces plans et ces stratégies beaucoup plus aptes, adéquates à justement atteindre les résultats d'accès, notamment d'accès universel, qui est le résultat principal visé à travers toutes ces stratégies et tous ces plans. Et le second pilier repose sur la gestion des connaissances, parce que le programme justement travaille en étroite collaboration avec d'autres partenaires, d'autres bailleurs, donc pour voir justement dans la gestion même du programme e-staff, dans les différents livrables de haute qualité qu'il produit, comment les disséminer, comment les partager à travers le secteur ou dans le pays où il intervient, pour justement permettre à parfaire un peu les pratiques, les bonnes pratiques, et aider justement les uns et les autres à mieux axer les objectifs et les résultats d'accès universel. Et le dernier pilier repose sur la coordination. Et cette coordination, justement, vise à, d'abord, dans un premier temps, à voir comment e-staff, avec l'écosystème de programmes intervenant dans le secteur de l'énergie, notamment dans le secteur du off-grid dans ces différents pays, comment mener cette coordination-là de façon vraiment aisée pour ne pas gêner, éviter surtout la duplication. Et c'est ça, en fait, puisque c'est une valeur chez le programme, dans le programme e-staff, d'éviter de faire des duplications dans les interventions pour justement mieux gérer les ressources humaines, mais aussi financières. Next slide. Évidemment, maintenant, ces interventions qui sont menées par e-staff à travers ces différents pays visent à atteindre les résultats à terme. Et parmi ces résultats, le premier résultat, c'est d'abord avoir un accès accru donc, au bout de 4 ans, parce que comme je le dis, la durée du programme est assez courte, c'est 4 ans, mais on cherche quand même au moins à la fin de ce programme de s'assurer que dans tous ces pays, 14 pays, on a un accès accru des populations, surtout pauvres, parce que le programme met l'accent sur ces couches vulnérables. Donc, pour s'assurer que ces populations vulnérables, ces communautés vulnérables ont accès à une énergie de qualité, mais surtout à bon marché. Mais ensuite, au niveau politique, pouvoir s'assurer que les politiques mises en œuvre et les réglementations permettent justement de s'assurer qu'on a un cadre de gouvernance, j'allais dire, idéal pour permettre au secteur privé de pouvoir mener ses activités de la façon la plus adéquate et justement assurer une bonne fourniture, surtout de qualité de produits de solaire et de qualité dans ces pays-là, mais aussi, d'autre part, s'assurer que les financements liés par rapport à ce secteur qui permettent au développement de ce secteur-là, donc on a un mécanisme ou des mécanismes qui sont là bien mis en place, qui permettent justement au secteur privé de pouvoir dérouler ses activités et développer justement le secteur du off-grid, du haut-réseau dans les différents pays où le programme intervient. Et évidemment, tout le vœu de ce programme est de voir qu'à la fin du programme, qu'on a réussi justement à permettre au moins à 2 millions de personnes dans le réseau, dans le haut réseau en Afrique, d'avoir accès à l'énergie. Next slide, please. Les principes, le programme repose aussi sur des principes stratégiques qui guident un peu ces activités. Donc, pour s'assurer que justement, comme je l'ai dit, on a une approche d'intervention dans les différents pays où on s'assure qu'on a un fort potentiel de résultats et d'impact à travers justement les plans et les stratégies qui sont mises en œuvre par les gouvernements pour s'assurer justement que le programme, quand il va être mis en œuvre, va s'assurer justement avec la collaboration justement au niveau institutionnel, mais aussi au niveau privé, que les résultats visés seront bien atteints. Et évidemment, ça sert justement comme des bases, j'allais dire, d'opportunités d'intervention pour le programme, justement. Aujourd'hui, justement, il faut s'assurer que justement, que ESTAF n'est pas le seul programme à intervenir dans le domaine du réseau au Sénégal, par exemple. On a d'autres partenaires, GIZ, on a d'autres programmes comme Power Africa qui interviennent aussi et qui participent de façon vraiment qualitative à l'amélioration du haut réseau et notamment aussi à accélérer l'accès à l'énergie de ces communautés-là issues du haut réseau. Donc aujourd'hui, le programme permet justement à travers cet apport, ce soutien-là qu'on amène aussi bien au niveau du gouvernement, mais aussi au niveau des associations pour le secteur privé, pour leur permettre justement d'avoir en tout cas tous les éléments qui peuvent leur permettre à travers une bonne documentation, à travers des livrables de qualité qui permettent justement de mettre en œuvre leur stratégie, leur plan pour permettre l'accès accru de ces populations-là à une énergie de qualité, mais aussi à bon marché. Next slide, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Malik.
OK, thank you. Donc, merci beaucoup. Je passe la parole à ma collègue Karine qui va nous donner un exposé parce que récemment, dans le contexte de la COVID, le programme, effectivement, a voulu revoir un peu les tendances du marché pour s'assurer que, justement, les interventions qui ont été déjà menées jusqu'ici et dans le contexte de la COVID, comment nous pouvons progresser et nous permettre, justement, de mieux adresser, vu les impacts de la pandémie, et comment mieux adresser ces impacts-là, les surmonter pour s'assurer que justement les objectifs vont rester intacts à travers les différents pays où ESTAF intervient. Et c'est pour cela que cette étude-là a été menée, ce qu'on appelle le Market Updates, pour permettre justement d'avoir une meilleure visibilité partant du contexte actuel et partant aussi des perspectives que l'on se donne pour pouvoir réussir à atteindre ces objectifs. Je vous remercie de votre attention et je passe la parole à Karine pour nous donner un peu un aperçu de cette étude-là à travers ces différents pays avec ces panélistes. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Karine, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Malik. Good afternoon, everyone. I will get started with a bit of an introduction of the work that we've been doing. My name is Karen Sosis. I'm based in Nairobi, and I have been in the last several months helping the ACE program to compile 14 market updates on the standalone solar market in the 14 countries the program is working in. These are brief updates that will be published, are being published for each country. They're focused on the last 18 months, so they're not looking at the entire background. And we're doing it because it's been a momentous time, as everyone knows. And And what I'm going to give you now is a quick snapshot. I'll also point you to a series of one-page summaries of these market updates that, if they haven't been shared already, I think Victor will be able to share them for your participants. I will go through fairly quickly, and by all means not comprehensively. I'll just pick out a couple of interesting things happening in each country, and leave it to the breakout sessions to have a bit more detail. Thereafter, I will be introducing a couple of panelists who will join the conversation. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Karen, we can.
Okay, so in general, what has been happening in these 4 countries? I've divided out some of the comments into supply, demand, the political framework, financing, and market support. This is generally how we've organized the market updates, although we could use other categories as well. On the supply side, we're of course seeing lots on COVID-related restrictions having to do with closed borders, movement restrictions, and the logistical difficulties resulting from those. We're seeing major economic shifts related to GDP decline, currency volatility, and how those are impacting companies operating in this space. But we're also seeing a continuation of some of the developments that were happening prior to COVID in terms of development of PAYGO, other types of credit being developed, partnerships between companies who are not vertically integrated in terms of offering credit, and other types of offerings from solar companies that build up their customer base and customer loyalty. On the demand side, we're seeing, as you can all imagine, and we've all experienced, impacts on income, employment, food security, more people going into poverty. And what does that mean in terms of energy access, in terms of making sales to these people? We're also seeing a slight preference for larger systems, though whether that's because of a market move in that direction or a continued market move in that direction, or because the poorest people who might have been buying the Pico solar systems are the hardest hit, only time will tell. Within the enabling environment, we're seeing increasing adoption of standards, regulations that are generally protecting consumers and investors, so increasing regulation of the enabling environment and the ecosystem in general, and tax relief in some countries and sometimes. On the financing front, we're seeing COVID relief being, or financing or donor relief being directed towards SMEs, which off-grid solar companies may or may not be accessing. We're seeing a trend in large-scale and large-ticket financing primarily going to international companies, although particularly in Nigeria, this is changing. And issues to do with local currency debt, which has long been difficult to come by, made even more difficult with currency devaluation. In market support, we're seeing a lot of help, and indeed we're going to be talking today about the nexus of energy and health, and a persistent lack of consumer data, which the ACE-TAF program is certainly trying to address, along with other partners. I'll move quite quickly through these. In Ghana, we had a bulk procurement, although we don't have more information on that, that made the most recent GOGLA sales figures, which were for the first half of 2020, the highest ever. That's not to say things aren't still going up, but we're not sure how much of those figures were a procurement. And different action within the market, including, especially by PEG, some innovative types of perks that they're packaging with their solar sales and marketing and consumer awareness. On the demand side, we're seeing a more reliable grid and many people connected to it, the most on the continent, but 5 million remaining unelectrified. And some recent estimates on what the market might look like, around between 400,000 and 500,000 households for solar home systems. We've also had some localized data collected during COVID about what the impacts might be, that you can see right here, which is, it's certainly quite serious. In the political framework in Ghana, a new certification for solar technicians, economy-wide tax waivers, a master plan that is looking at 25 megawatts of solar, standalone solar by 2030. And again, some support in the regulatory ecosystem. Financing PEG continues to bring in money, although that was a 2019 figure right there. Consumer, we have various types of consumer financing, and helped by, no doubt, by an increase in mobile money use and mobile money transaction value. The government and Ghanaian banks are also offering a facility that off-grid solar companies will have access to, although it is not clear whether they are doing so just already. And then market support, there is COVID relief, including to electrify the CHIPS compounds, the lowest level health centers, and also directed at medium and small enterprises. But data is really still lacking. Some of these are, you'll see repeated across all 4 countries, and some are quite specific to Ghana. That is a snapshot. I'm going to go quickly on to Nigeria, where sales were down in line with what the global average decline was in the first half of 2020, mostly on the cash sales side and the smaller units, the Pico Solar. We had an entry into the market by Baobab and an exit by Mobisol. We have, and encouraged by government, new local assembly and production that's coming online and getting financing. And quite a strong renewable energy association that is really taking up the topic, and in terms of a new committee on solar, standalone solar. Nigeria has one of the largest unelectrified markets in the world, if not the largest, 77 million, and a market that is showing an ability and willingness to pay for power, spending $14 billion annually on generators and fuel. With COVID, there was likewise a mid-year survey done that showed that many people were continuing to maintain their spending on fuel as opposed to reducing spending. That said, we think that there has been quite a major drop of many people into poverty conditions. The political framework, again, I recognize how difficult it is to summarize so many big things in a couple of minutes, but we have standalone solar in several major documents and programs, including the newly announced Solar Power Niger, which is targeting 5 million households with solar and is also encouraging local manufacturing. New quality standards, a maintenance, and actually a rise in VAT and a maintenance of 10% duty. I think batteries are actually attracting 20%, and more regulation in the surrounding ecosystem. The ACE-TAF and OCA developed investment map has estimated 227 million in investment into the Nigerian solar sector in the last 5 years, the vast majority of that going to the larger international companies, although that is changing. Mobile money transactions albeit from quite a low base, are up 10% in 2020 and continuing to rise with the advent of COVID and fears about exchanging paper money. Nigeria, prior to COVID, was already having major currency fluctuations due to the oil markets, and that has continued at least into the beginning of 2020. And we're finding that aside from the large companies, the retailers are rarely accessing credit, which might be one of the blockages discussed by our panelists. But new COVID-related credit lines are being opened to SMEs by the central bank. Market support includes some really concerted help on the data front, an Energy Access Explorer, which is using geospatial data that's through the REA, market research doing sort of ground truthing and really detailed level consumer research. The Nigeria SE for All platform, which is looking to bring everything together, and incubation of some renewable energy startups. I will move on with that. That's now looking at Senegal. Again, these countries are quite different to each other. Senegal had declared solar to be, along with the electricity supply in general, to be an essential service during COVID. Certified sales from Gogla were down 41% year on year. Excuse me, so some difficult times for the companies operating in that market. The decrease, as with Nigeria, mainly on the cash sales side. And we're looking, I picked this one out of the bunch, though it's not really any different from the other countries we're discussing, a real decline in GDP growth. On the demand side in Senegal, we have 6 million people unelectrified. The Senegalese government was long pro grid and mini grid electrification, and I'm sure that combined with the prevalence of lower quality product has maintained a fairly negative perception of solar, especially with the rural population in terms of what their expectations are. The political framework is being supported by an off-grid consultation framework. The Renewable Energy Agency, ASER, is proceeding along the lines of an SC for All operational plan, targeting 100% access by 2025. I'd be curious to hear how realistic that is, although again, it's not out of line with what we're seeing in other countries in terms of ambition. The big news is an 18% VAT exemption in 2020. And some changes of leadership, although remains to be described whether that has impacted the sector negatively or not. There's been an estimated $8 million in debt and equity finance from mostly international sources, and recently an energy access relief facility set up to channel green climate funds of $30 million, along with some money coming through the Rural Electrification Agency that we're not sure yet whether standalone solar companies are accessing. Market support, there are grants supporting the sector, including an MCC Power Compact, which does include off-grid solar. And last but not least, the Sierra Leone market also had an unusual bump in sales in the first half of 2020, likely due to a bulk procurement, although we don't have details on it. There were some much shorter lockdowns in Sierra Leone, but nevertheless, movement restrictions were quite severe, and there are rumors, unverified, that there have been some outlet closures and agent layoffs, which we probably are seeing throughout throughout the continent. On the demand side, we have grid primarily in Freetown, the capital, and heavily subsidized. We have 6 million people unelectrified, similar to size to the other 2 countries here besides Nigeria, and also some recent estimates made of the size of the market. Whether this has anything to do with economic viability or affordability, I don't have that information, but nevertheless, we have something in the range of what it might look like. The political framework in Sierra Leone is there is an integrated energy resource plan, a national electrification plan that is under development and ongoing. That's looking to harmonize various documents, including a recently developed off-grid strategy. That's with the ACE-TAF support. In Sierra Leone, they've adopted quality standards. The new budget does include both duty and general sales tax relief, although whether that is being applied consistently isn't clear. And consumer protection regulation, along with some gender and energy strategizing in the energy sector. In financing, an estimate of $43 million from all types of sources in the last 5 years. That's again a figure from the investment math that was done by OCA. A lot of that being taken by Easy Solar, who's offering a pay-go solar product. And some of that money for Easy Solar was crowdfunded. Local currency debt remains very difficult to obtain, and consumer financing, again, a little bit of creativity, including a payroll deduction scheme from Easy Solar, Osusus, which are local savings groups who are increasingly being looked at as avenues, and pay-go, but low mobile money use, which has been a challenge on both the demand and supply sides. Market support, we see similar support going into the health sector, electrification of the health sector, an off-grid task force that is bringing stakeholders together that was developed several years ago, and data that's coming from a few different stakeholders that's really looking to illuminate the market. I will leave it at that. That's a lot of quick talking by me. I hope that came across okay, and I'm sorry to the interpreter. What I'm going to do now is ask our panelists to raise their hands, and I'll make a quick introduction for our panel discussion. We have Engineer Wilson from the Sierra Leone Ministry of Energy Planning Unit. He is the focal person for the ACE-TAF program within the ministry and within the Sierra Leone government. Welcome, Engineer Wilson. And we have Harry Masters, who's with Open Capital Advisors, one of the ACE-TAF partners, who has been involved with the investment mapping that was done in Sierra Leone and Nigeria, and can speak about the investment situation in general. Let me stop sharing my screen, I think. And see. There's Harry. Do we have Engineer Wilson? Or maybe, Ami, have you?
Yes, he's supposed to be on. I saw him logged on. Let me give him a call. 1 second.
Okay. Okay, maybe let's just have a wait a second, see if.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, he's on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Engineer Wilson. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, and also thank you for your presentation, which I actually listened to. It's interestingly captured most of the things I think we're doing in Sierra Leone. And you're right when you said now that it's supporting the solar energy market in Sierra Leone. And you rightly made mention of the fact that GST and other taxes have been either reduced or totally waived for the importation of solar and solar equipment to Sierra Leone. That's good news for the market, solar market in Sierra Leone. I think 2021 is not going to be a bad year for the solar market. But whilst we go into 2021 after COVID, we are moving, let's move cautiously because COVID is not yet over. You know, we still have challenges here and there, but we know it'll be over pretty soon, probably later in the year. But by the same token, we have made very serious improvements in the sector. We have both grid-connected solar systems, a 6 megawatt solar plant which is going to be fed to the grid, and we have a substantial amount of off-grid systems, standalone systems, as it were. And I think, interestingly, what I want to bring to your attention is with the coming of these standalone systems in 2021, if we capture most of the standalone systems we'll be having off Freetown in rural areas, that will help us increase, will help us to actually get the actual access to electricity in the IRP. Because what we have now is a very low figure without capturing the standalone systems, and which I think it's not the right figure. So once we've got the appetite from the government supporting the market, sometime in the future, in the 2021, as we do the standalone systems, we capture them, it will increase the electricity access rate, and that figure might change, not substantially, but of course to a higher figure sometime later in 2021. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I have my colleagues here. Yes.
Okay. Let me see what Harry has to say. Harry, we're coming up on a full year of COVID. The global economy is in tatters. Solar suppliers and customers are suffering. What would be the takeaways for you in terms of what's happened to the solar markets?
Absolutely. So I think there's a few key areas that I do want to touch on that I think this last year has taught us about, what this might look like in the short term. One of them, which maybe a newer trend, but one I think is particularly exciting, is the new funding that we're seeing come in for different areas that intersect with energy access, for example, healthcare and education. I think more than ever before, and people I'm sure on this call are well aware, the pandemic has really underscored the importance of energy access and made clear the gap between the haves and the have-nots. With a number of people kind of trying to operate remotely and also healthcare systems being overwhelmed, off-grid solar or standalone solar has really stepped up to the plate there. So we've seen some innovation and concessional capital come in to try and either develop new solutions or roll out existing ones. And we think this is really critical to providing these essential services, but also providing new avenues for the standalone solar market. On investment in particular, I think one thing that we've noted in a number of our conversations, both with investors and potential investees, is that equity, particularly early stage equity for those smaller players, can still be quite challenging to obtain. So, of course, smaller companies require equity to demonstrate growth or prove traction. But during some of these challenging times, this has become harder. Though, of course, as you mentioned, Karen, there have been a couple notable deals, even within the region in West Africa. But some of the issues that COVID presented us with were various investors pulling back from making investments or delaying their funding decisions until there was more certainty. And this definitely caused a pinch for many companies that were actively raising. And again, in a way, this is widening the gap between some of the companies with existing investment, those that had investors that were willing to shore them up and double down, and then some of those companies that are still seeking some of those earlier funding rounds. And then I think the last one, which you've already touched a little bit on, that we're still keen on actually watching, is the potential impact of relief funding or different incentives that are coming up. So a few smaller funds have launched to provide either grants or concessional debt to help companies through the time, and these have definitely been invaluable. But they've maybe been on a regional basis or on a smaller scale, so haven't really reached throughout the ecosystem. Then, of course, governments have also supported the sector. For example, those tax incentives that were just mentioned, or with lines of credit, for example, in Nigeria. And I think that there's still a good amount of relief. And then hopefully with some of these funding coming online, for example, the Energy Access Relief Fund, as you mentioned, seeing this funding both providing much needed relief for companies, but also really interested to see what the impact are going to be on those companies' balance sheets as well. So those are a couple of things that we've been thinking about.
You're on mute, Karen.
Engineer Wilson, what would be your one trend that you're looking at for the coming year, your one focus area, if you could have one?
I think come again, please.
I'm saying if you could pick out one thing that you think is really important to be focused on for this coming year in terms of the off-grid solar market and regulatory environment, what would your bet be? Where are you focusing?
Well, I think by and large, we will see that government's priority will be community health centers, not in Freetown, outside Freetown, in the provincial and the surrounding villages. As at the moment, we have 50 mini grid systems, 50 CHCs already electrified, and there's the program, the Rural Renewable Energy Project, which actually prioritizes CHCs. CHCs simply means community health centers, because I think that's where government wants electricity to be available, and they are not in major big towns where you have grid-connected electricity. So most of them are actually in rural areas. So once you have some of the standalone systems, surrounding village can benefit both from the standalone systems that will be connected to the community health centers and the villages, which will range from something from 6 kilowatts per CHC to something in the order of 36 kilowatts. I think that's going to be the focus of government in this year, 2021. UNOPS to that end has done well. They've done 50. Government of Sierra Leone has got the appetite to continue, and I think there's investment coming in that direction this year.
That's great, thank you. And hopefully in all of these countries, at least some of this is being procured from local companies and helping to build their track record and their books. Harry, what would be your 2021 prediction?
Yeah, I think there's, I might cheat a little bit. I think there's two areas that I'm particularly excited about. The first one is around demand side or end user subsidies. So, as we mentioned, it's, clear now more than ever, how important it is to ensure that no one is left behind in electrification. And, based on some of the research that we've supported through either the Market Trends Report or on a paper on subsidies through ACE, it's clearer that we will really need these end user subsidies to achieve universal electrification. And also, what's been quite interesting in the last year is that the pandemic has actually in some ways accelerated the testing of different subsidy mechanisms as governments have looked to provide relief to their citizens as well. So, as we look towards the next year, we're really excited to see, how the private and the public sector will come together to start continuing to test and then look at rolling out these in the future. And then the last area, it's an area that, it's getting a lot of attention, but is around productive uses of energy. I think there's major themes here as we think about how we're going to support the long-term economic recovery after COVID-19. Really seeing that investing in productive use of energy can really support that goal. We've seen how energy access can be transformative at the household level, but really curious to see how it will evolve with various investor, donor, and industry support to develop these more productive, higher tier uses of energy, whether on the agriculture side, supporting SMEs, or otherwise. So those are the two areas we're looking at. Thank you.
And thank you.
Just quickly, if I may, just quickly before we round up, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just to kind of to reach the discussion. It's not an official invitee of this meeting, but we're around, and they probably would like to share one or two, probably what he knows in the sector as well. I'm right in his office. If he doesn't mind, he will say a word or two on some of the things he's already said about Sierra Leone. Sorry. I don't know what
Okay, I'm very quickly, because we're running a bit late and we have everyone waiting for us.
All right. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It was just going to add one or two sentences, but that's fine. All what we needed to say, we've said already. Thank you.
All right. Sorry to cut you short there, but thank you so much. And thanks to everyone. I'll turn it back over to Victor. Maybe I can just add, I think the links for the breakout sessions have been posted in the chat. So if you all want to just proceed directly through the chat, we'll see you back.
Hi, Karen.
Oh, there's Victor. Go ahead, Victor.
Hi. Sorry, my connection was not too good. Yeah, so the breakout sessions have been posted on the chat. Just click on the session that you would like to attend and kindly proceed to that chat room. There is already you'll find a facilitator within that room. The first one is being facilitated by Malik Sek, who is our country manager for Senegal. The second breakout session is being facilitated by Chibukem Agbaibu, who is our country manager for Nigeria. And the third one is being facilitated by Aminata, who is our country manager for Sierra Leone. The three of them will guide the conversations in the rooms. And because of time and because we know we are supposed to have concluded by 4:30, we have an hour to do the breakout sessions and the conclusion, which is coming back here later on to just wind up. So remember, when you click on the link, it will just take you to the other room. Leave this one paused. When you leave the other one, just come back to this room so that we can conclude together. Thank you, everyone. See you on the breakout sessions.
So Victor, you allow me to translate for the others?
Yes, proceed. But I think go ahead.
Very quickly. Donc les autres, comme l'a dit Victor, donc vous cliquez sur le lien qui est en bas pour entrer dans l'autre session. Vous sortez de cette session et pour permettre de suivre la session pour le Sénégal, pour ceux qui sont intéressés par la session numéro 1, donc pour le Sénégal, Breakout Session 1. Et là, après, à la fin, on va revenir sur on va fermer là-bas et revenir cliquer sur cette session-là, le panel. Merci. Thanks, Victor.
Thanks, Malik. Hello, everyone. I hope we are back. We are running quite quickly out of time. So with that in mind, I think we will just hopefully bring everybody back here. And Karen, if you're in the room, I don't know how many of the sessions you managed to jump into, but before Pauline closes the workshop today with her closing remarks, perhaps you can give us a quick snapshot of some of the few things you picked up while you were hovering in some of the sessions that you are into. And if there is any of the facilitators that has anything that stood out that you would like to share during the discussions in your sessions, then you can do so before we invite Pauline to close for us for today. Karen, are you in the room? I guess some of us are still not on the other breakout sessions. Let's give them 2 minutes and then we come back and hopefully we can have some feedback and have Pauline wrap it up for us. Hi, everyone. So we have the last group coming back in, but if Malik or Aminata is in the room and you'd like to share something before they come in about your session, anything that stood out in a minute or two from the discussions you are having, so that we can finish up and then we can have Pauline wrap it up for us.
Yeah. Yes, thanks, Victor. Thanks, really, for we had a very interesting session where we have some really interesting takeaways. And we noticed that, well, first one was the political will of the Senegalese government to take into account and operationalize, the gender consideration through the different plans and strategies of rural electrification in Senegal. Mainly, the focus is, the operational plan implemented by ASER, the operational plan of the Universal Access Plan implemented by ASER. But also, on the other hand, we have, this government support, to really promote, quality, energy access to quality and affordable products for the vulnerable communities through the VAT exemptions. And this is one of the second, as we have seen in Karin's presentation, and that's one of the major achievement, I would say, from the government during this year. But of course, we will be, as a program, we will be supporting this fiscal incentive in its implementation to ensure that those vulnerable communities really are impacted by these fiscal exemptions. And then thirdly, which would be that we noticed that the support, the increasing interest, I would say, for the productive use of energy to really support the development, to support the employment, but also develop skills in those communities, in those remote areas, to really help those young women and young people really stay in their localities, stay in their areas, and then develop that, and then this perspective, giving that local development for those localities is something that we noticed through this political will, but also which tend to be operationalized through the operational plan implemented by ASER. So broadly, those are the three main things really we noticed, and which really give us a better hope, much hope really to really encourage us to really go further into our intervention and support for the government of Senegal. Thanks a lot, Victor.
Do we have Ami in the room?
Yes, we do. Hi. In my session, I was privileged to have Jasmine from the UNOPS program. They're implementing the Rural Renewable Energy Program in Sierra Leone, where they're electrifying community health centers. And basically, the critical thing that came out of it in terms of recommendations is that coordination between Energy Ministry and the Health Ministry is highly critical, and that the integrated approach for planning is key with the ministries. And some of the challenges, she also discussed some of the challenges that they're facing with the project is that electrifying the community health centers, requires a sustainable model. So therefore, funding and technical expertise are very, very key. And for sustainability, private sector involvement is also very crucial. And also maintenance and private sector maintenance by private sector operators is very, very key. With the Energy Access Explorer presentation, Dimitrios mentioned that energy is interconnected with at least 125 out of 169 the SDG targets. And that also with him, he emphasized on proper and integrated energy planning, especially using the geospatial information are very essential with energy planning. Those are the points that came out of the discussions, and albeit there are various challenges that the UNOPS project specifically is facing, which is one is the overuse of power by the CHCs. In their project, the estimation is that 6.6 kilowatt hours will be allotted to CHCs, while the rest is given to communities on a commercial basis. However, because of the overuse, the healthcare. Okay, so they've also been experiencing theft. The CHCs are using the additional power for commercial uses, whereby it's making it challenging for other private sector to be able to sell. So there are various challenges that they've been dealing with, but it's very, very critical when you're working within the energy nexus to make sure that the high-level coordination between the respective ministries is done. And that's pretty much a summary of our discussion.
Thanks, Ami. So finally, we'll move on to Chibu and the team from the second breakout.
All right, thanks everyone. I think it was very insightful breakout session. We basically looked at what the investment flow and landscape has been for Nigeria and Sierra Leone specifically, and in terms of the commercial and the donor government investments to date, comparing both. Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, okay. Yeah, so we looked at what the investment flow has been to date, building on the investment macro research that was done by OCA, and then looking at what the key barriers are on the supply side, on the demand side, in terms of regulatory and policy. So for example, on the supply side, things around the unstable macroeconomic environment, which make the risk profile for investors, for investment high, and a bit of the uncompetitive financing terms for standalone solar. On the demand side, we looked at one of the key issues, which is the fact that for local, even though the space is dominated by foreign companies, for local companies, there is the need to build their capacity. There's this limitation in terms of how they are able to absorb investment. So on one side, there is investment, but they are unable to absorb that, mainly because maybe the available investments does not fit their ticket sizes, and also looking a lot around the local currency and forex limitations as well. And then on the regulatory and policy side, I think it was mainly around looking at what the historical landscape has been in terms of policy and regulatory implementation, which does not give confidence to investors. But then we also highlighted some of the positive improvements that have been done in the sector. So looking at the efforts of the government in Sierra Leone through the Ministry of Energy, and in Nigeria primarily through the REA, in terms of trying to encourage investment. The government putting in not just policy, but also putting in low debt financing and ambitious plans, and so which has given investors a bit more confidence to come into the space, and all of that as well. So we looked at basically there's some of the key recommendations basically where how companies will be able to do better in terms of their capacity to absorb capital. On the investment side, looking at investors providing increasing technical assistance in addition to investment, and just adopting the right financing mechanism for investment, especially looking at the impact of COVID-19. And then on the part of the government, just strengthening those policy and regulatory, especially when it comes to incentives like VAT and import duty exemptions, and also just continuous donor program support. So yeah, we covered that some of the key questions were around the affordability of SES systems for consumers, how investors are actually making returns, and what is the nature of the commercial investment landscape in Nigeria. So we covered all of that, but I think more information will be in the investment maps when they are published. Thank you. Over to you, Victor. I think you're on mute.
Yes, hi. I was on mute. Thanks, Chibu. So before I invite Pauline, Malik seems to be saying that there's something that if he doesn't say, his group will have missed out on one of the key points on advocacy. So Malik, I'll give you 1 minute, and then after that, Pauline, please just take over from Malik, and then we shall proceed.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. I mean, it's just an advocacy towards the governments represented here by ASER. But I will say that in French en tout cas, je voulais déjà, pour ma part, et au nom du programme et staff, déjà faire un plaidoyer en faveur des acteurs locaux, en l'occurrence les élus locaux. Parce qu'il me semble que cette dynamique de renforcer l'accès à l'énergie tardera à prendre sa vitesse de croisière si les acteurs locaux ne sont pas impliqués au premier plan dans la formulation, l'élaboration, mais aussi la mise en œuvre et aussi le monitoring de ces politiques publiques. Et en l'espèce, permettre un accès à l'électricité de qualité en quantité suffisante tel qu'il est stipulé dans le plan Sénégal émergent. Et j'ose espérer que justement cette dynamique-là qui est en train d'être mise en œuvre à travers le plan opérationnel puisse justement permettre l'accès pour nos concitoyens à une énergie vraiment de qualité, mais aussi abondante pour surtout les populations issues des zones reculées. Vraiment, c'est le plaidoyer que je tenais à faire. Et pour nous, justement, et Staff Sénégal, c'est une intervention majeure pour l'année en cours qu'on cherche à justement essayer de mettre en œuvre pour justement comment impliquer les élus locaux dans la formulation, mais aussi dans la mise en œuvre et le monitoring de ces politiques publiques, notamment l'accès à l'énergie pour ces couches vulnérables, mais en tout cas de façon générale pour l'accès universel à l'électricité pour le Sénégal. Je vous remercie. Thanks, Victor.
Pauline?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Malik. And thank you all who have joined us today on this workshop. I think there was just so much packed in a very short time. And the West African market is a huge market with a lot of potential. And I think within the short amount of time, the teams were able to do justice by just addressing some of the key issues that come out of or the key opportunities that are presenting themselves within the Western Africa region. And really, looking at the discussion that was with Senegal and reflects across, the rest of the Western Africa region, talking about affordability and how there can be more inclusivity. Using Nigeria as an example to look at investment readiness within the countries in West Africa, and using Sierra Leone as an example to look at the opportunities that exist outside of the traditional lighting and access to clean energy, going beyond using the off-grid model to also provide energy in other areas. So healthcare in this was an example that we used and highlighted what was happening in Sierra Leone, but opportunities exist in agriculture, in education, and in other fields that are not necessarily just energy. So I want to thank the team that brought all of this together. I want to thank the A-Staff team for the hard work behind the scenes. I want to thank all the speakers and all the input that was brought together. I want to thank the team from Interprify for making it possible for us to speak to a wider audience that included other West African countries that are Francophone. So next steps from here, we have in this series, we'll be looking at East Africa and Southern Africa as well. And I hope that you have found this very useful. And even as we look at East Africa, which will be will focus on Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and but then also the larger East African bloc, and then the Southern African bloc, which we will have this conversation on the 18th. So we ask you to join us if you're interested in those countries, or if you know others who are interested in those countries, to please join us. Victor is going to drop on the chat box some briefs on the countries that are covered by A-Staff. Feel free to look into those briefs. They are the market update briefs that give a synopsis, some of what Karen presented at the beginning of this conversation, that give you just a brief summary of what's happening in Senegal, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. We also have the market update, the full version ready and available for Nigeria on our website. Again, Victor is going to drop a link, and perhaps you might want to take a deeper dive and see what's happening in Nigeria, as well as also coming soon, we'll have the investment maps, which are now ready for Sierra Leone and Nigeria in the Western region. So we welcome you to just look into those documents, look at the opportunities that exist, even as we rally towards SDG 7, the accomplishment of energy, access to energy, clean energy for all by 2030. I will hand back to Victor so that he can let us know how we can give how we can give feedback on the sessions that we were in this afternoon. In addition, how you can reach us and our contacts on the screen, and how we can access the conversations that happened this morning, this afternoon, how, whether they're recorded, and how you can get the presentations that were made. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you when we discuss the Eastern Africa opportunities. Thank you. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Pauline. I know we've been here long, so I will not keep all of you. Again, let me re-emphasize, thank you for having attended our workshop today. To find out more about the A-Staff program, you can go to the A-Staff website, which is on your screen right now. Our Facebook page is as well there, LinkedIn, Twitter, and a phone number that you can call to reach our office directly. We will be sharing the recorded version of this workshop on our YouTube channel. So in the next few days, all those who had registered for this particular workshop, the same email you received inviting you will be sharing the resources from the workshop. That is all the documents that Pauline has mentioned, including a link for you to be able to watch this back if you need to watch it. We'll also look into the other sessions that were going on as the 3 breakout sessions were happening, and just make sure that we make those available as well. For any information that you might need directly or immediately, you can drop your email on the chat and just inform me of what you need, and I will be able to respond directly to you via your email addresses. Otherwise, I think that's it for today. I think it's been a wonderful workshop. Thank you all for taking the time. And let's look forward to the next one, which is the East Africa one, and then followed by the Southern Africa one. We hope that even if you're from the West, you have the curiosity to want to attend those ones and find out what's different between your region and West Africa. And the other 2 regions. Thank you very much. And if there are no other burning issues, I would like to call the workshop to a close and say, see you at the next one.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Ok, merci.
No, it's not true. There's a timeline. Because we have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and everybody must respect that.